Trust is a fragile thing that takes years to build and only seconds to shatter. I learned this lesson the hard way when my older brother Jake, who had made my life miserable since childhood, crossed the ultimate line. After years of sabotaging my relationships, education, and career opportunities, he slept with my wife Amanda and got her pregnant. The betrayal devastated me, but it also finally opened my parents' eyes to who Jake truly was. They immediately revised their will, disowning him and leaving their entire $2 million estate to me alone. Now, 2 years later, Jake has returned broken and desperate for help. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and subscribe if you have ever been betrayed by someone you thought you could trust. Growing up with Jake was like living in the shadow of a hurricane. He was 4 years older, stronger, and seemed to take pleasure in making sure I knew it at every opportunity. Our childhood home in suburban Chicago became a battlefield where I was constantly on the defensive. When I was 7, Jake convinced me that our parents were actually alien replacements of our real parents. For weeks, I was terrified to sleep in my own bed, hiding in the closet, until exhaustion overtook me. My parents thought I was going through a phase until they found Jake laughing about his prank to his friends on the phone. Jake just has a strong personality, Daniel, my mother would say after each incident. You need to toughen up a little. My father, a successful investment banker, was rarely home enough to witness the worst of it, but when he was, he tended to side with Jake. Boys will be boys became his mantra whenever I complained. As we grew older, Jake's tactics evolved from childish pranks to more calculated cruelty. In high school, he spread rumors that I was gay, causing my first girlfriend to break up with me. When I made the baseball team sophomore year, he convinced the coach I was using steroids, resulting in humiliating drug tests and suspicion that never fully dissipated. Our appearances reflected our personalities. Jake was tall and naturally athletic, with our father's confident charm and easy smile. I was more like our mother, average height, with a leaner build, better at academics than sports. While Jake commanded attention when he entered a room, I preferred to observe from the sidelines. My parents struggled to understand the dynamics between us. He is your brother. My mother would insist during family therapy sessions they eventually arranged. Someday you will be all each other has. Those sessions proved useless. Jake would transform into the perfect, concerned brother in the therapist's office, only to corner me in the parking lot afterward. Nice performance, crybaby. He would smirk. Keep it up, and they might put you in a special school. When I finally escaped to college, choosing a state university across the country that Jake had no interest in, I thought I would finally be free. For 2 blissful years, I flourished without his shadow looming over me. My grades were excellent. I made genuine friends and even started dating with newfound confidence. Then Jake unexpectedly transferred to my university for his final year after flunking out of his prestigious East Coast school. He claimed it was for a fresh start, but within weeks, my carefully constructed life began unraveling. My roommate suddenly demanded I move out after Jake told him I had been stealing his belongings. A professor who had been mentoring me became cold after receiving an anonymous email claiming I had plagiarized my research project. My girlfriend at the time broke up with me after Jake, in a seemingly drunken moment, mentioned my sex addiction therapy within her hearing. None of it was true, but Jake's exceptional talent was creating doubt just plausible enough to poison everything I built. After graduation, I moved to Seattle, deliberately choosing a city where Jake had no connections. I found work at a marketing firm, rented a small apartment, and began rebuilding once again. For nearly 3 years, my life was blessedly Jake-free. We only interacted at mandatory family holidays, where I perfected the art of civil distance. During this peaceful period, I met Amanda. She worked at the coffee shop near my apartment with auburn hair that caught the morning light and a laugh that made everyone around her smile. After months of daily coffee and shy conversation, I finally asked her out. Amanda was everything I had ever wanted in a partner: kind, intelligent, creative, and seemingly untouched by the type of cruelty I had grown up with. She was an artist who paid the bills with barista work while selling her paintings at local galleries. Her independence and passion for life drew me in completely. "You are the first guy I have dated who actually listens," she told me 6 months into our relationship. Like, really listens. When I proposed a year later, her tearful yes felt like the beginning of something I had always wanted: a family of my own, built on mutual respect and kindness, instead of power and intimidation. My parents were thrilled. They had worried about my antisocial tendencies, as they called my self-protective isolation. Mom immediately began planning an elaborate wedding, while Dad took me aside to offer financial assistance for a down payment on a house. "It is time you settled down properly," he said, patting my shoulder awkwardly but affectionately. "Amanda is a lovely girl." Jake, meanwhile, was struggling. His business degree had not translated into the immediate success he had expected. He bounced between jobs, frequently fired for conflicts with management or questionable ethics. His extravagant lifestyle, funded largely by our parents' generosity, resulted in mounting credit card debt. When I introduced Amanda to my family, Jake was uncharacteristically subdued. He complimented her politely and asked thoughtful questions about her art. For once, he seemed genuinely happy for me, even offering to help with wedding preparations. "Maybe he has finally grown up," my mother suggested hopefully, when I expressed surprise at his behavior. I wanted to believe it too. The thought that my brother might finally see me as an equal, that we might develop a normal relationship, was seductive. So when Jake mentioned he was looking for work in Seattle, I did not immediately panic. When he asked if he could stay with us temporarily while apartment hunting after securing a job offer, I consulted with Amanda, who encouraged me to give him a chance. "Family is important," she said, squeezing my hand. "Everyone deserves a second chance." Those words would come back to haunt us both. The first hint something was wrong came about 2 months after Jake moved into our spare bedroom. Amanda started coming home later from her gallery showings, often smelling of wine and wearing clothes I did not recognize. When I asked about these changes, she became defensive. "I am networking, Daniel," she would say. "This is important for my career. Not everything is about you." Her words stung, so unlike the supportive partner I had married. Around the same time, Jake began making subtle comments about Amanda's attractiveness or artistic talent when we were alone. "You really lucked out," he would say. "A woman like that could have her pick of guys." I noticed he had started helping her transport paintings to galleries when I was working late. They had inside jokes I was not part of. My stomach knotted every time I saw them laughing together in our kitchen conversation, stopping abruptly when I entered the room. Still, I told myself I was being paranoid. My history with Jake had made me suspicious by nature. Amanda was my wife, and she loved me. Jake was finally acting like a brother. I should be grateful, not suspicious. Then came the text message that was never meant for me. Amanda had left her phone on the counter while showering, and it lit up with Jake's name. I had never snooped before, but something pushed me to look. "Miss you already. Last night was incredible. Delete this." My hands shook as I scrolled up, finding weeks of exchanges between them, each more explicit than the last. Photos, plans for meetups while I worked late, mocking comments about how oblivious I was. When Amanda emerged from the shower, I was sitting at the kitchen table, her phone in front of me. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She froze, towel clutched around her, water dripping onto the floor. Her face cycled through shock, guilt, and finally a strange defiance. "A month," she admitted. "It just happened, Daniel. I never meant to hurt you." "It just happened," I repeated. "For a month. Multiple times. With my brother. He understands me in ways you never could," she said, the cruelty of her words landing like physical blows. "He is exciting, passionate, not always so careful and boring." I walked out, driving aimlessly for hours, finally ending up at a hotel. The next morning, I returned home to find Jake gone and Amanda packing a bag. "I am going to stay with a friend," she said, not meeting my eyes. "We need space to figure this out." "There is nothing to figure out," I replied. "I want a divorce." She looked up then, tears streaming down her face. "Daniel, there is something else. I am pregnant." The room seemed to tilt sideways. "Is it mine?" Her silence was answer enough. "Is Jake taking responsibility?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "He says he needs time to process, that it might not even be his." Though we had been trying for a baby for nearly a year, Amanda and I had been unsuccessful. The cruel irony that she had immediately conceived with my brother was not lost on me. DNA testing confirmed what I already knew. The child was Jake's. Throughout the testing and divorce proceedings, he was conspicuously absent, having moved out the same day I discovered the affair. Amanda tried repeatedly to contact him, eventually tracking him down at a friend's apartment. He says it is my problem, she told me during our final meeting with the divorce attorneys, that I trapped him and he wants nothing to do with the baby. I felt no satisfaction in her distress. The Amanda I thought I knew would never have betrayed me like this. Perhaps she had never existed at all. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. I sold our house, moved to a smaller apartment across town, and threw myself into work. Amanda moved back to her hometown in Oregon to live with her parents. I heard through mutual friends that she gave birth to a healthy boy. I blocked her number and all social media connections, determined to excise both her and Jake from my life completely. My parents' reaction to the betrayal surprised me. For the first time in our lives, they did not make excuses for Jake. "We failed you both," my father said during a difficult phone call after I told them about the divorce. "We let him get away with too much for too long, and now look what has happened." My mother was even more distraught. "I always told you that blood was thicker than water," she said through tears. "But what Jake did, that is not what family does to each other." They tried contacting Jake multiple times, but he avoided them, just as he was avoiding Amanda and his responsibilities. When he finally answered their calls, he apparently showed no remorse, even suggesting I should get over it and be a man about the situation. That conversation proved to be the breaking point for my parents. Dad called me afterward, his voice tight with controlled anger. "We have made a decision," he said. "We are revising our will. Jake has shown us who he truly is, and we cannot reward that behavior." I protested weakly, more out of shock than disagreement. My parents had always treated us equally despite Jake's behavior. Their estate, worth approximately $2 million between investments, property, and retirement accounts, had been designated to split evenly between us. "Our minds are made up," Mom said when she took the phone. "We should have set better boundaries years ago. This is long overdue." In the months that followed, Jake's life unraveled completely. He lost his job after showing up drunk and verbally abusing his supervisor. Amanda pursued him for child support, forcing him to appear in court, where he made a spectacle of himself, resulting in maximum payments and a stern warning from the judge about his conduct. Our extended family, once charmed by Jake's superficial charisma, began distancing themselves after details of his behavior spread. Cousins unfriended him on social media. Aunts and uncles who had once slipped him extra cash at family gatherings now asked about me instead, sending cards and supportive messages. I took no pleasure in his downfall. Despite everything, some small part of me still remembered the brother I had wanted growing up, the one who might have protected rather than tormented me, the one who could have been my friend rather than my persecutor. Almost a year after the divorce, my parents invited me to their lake house for the weekend. They seemed older. Suddenly, the stress of the past year, evident in new wrinkles and graying hair. "We have something to show you," Dad said, handing me a thick envelope. Inside was their updated will, officially filed and notarized. It left everything to me with specific language, excluding Jake from any inheritance and prohibiting me from transferring assets to him after their deaths. "This feels wrong," I said. "Despite everything, it is our decision to make," Mom replied firmly. "We have enabled his behavior for too long. There must be consequences." I left the lake house troubled by the finality of their decision, though I understood it. That was the last normal weekend we would spend together. 3 weeks later, they were killed in a head-on collision with a drunk driver while returning from a dinner with friends. The news reached me via a 3 a.m. phone call from the police. The officer's voice gentle, but direct, as he explained, neither had suffered. The funeral was a blur of faces and condolences. Jake did not attend. I learned later he had been informed, but was in no condition to travel, having been evicted from his apartment and temporarily living in his car. The weeks following were consumed with paperwork arrangements and the overwhelming process of becoming an orphan at 32. The estate went through probate smoothly, and as stipulated in the will, everything transferred to me. The family home in Chicago, the lake house in Wisconsin, investment accounts, insurance policies, all of it. I was numb to the inheritance, too grief-stricken to think about the money. It felt tainted somehow, acquired through the worst possible circumstances. I would have given every penny to have my parents back. 3 months after the funeral, as I was sorting through their personal effects in the Chicago house, preparing it for sale, a knock came at the door. When I opened it, I almost did not recognize the man standing there. Jake looked like a shadow of himself. Gaunt, unshaven, with dark circles under bloodshot eyes. His clothes were wrinkled and stained, his once confident posture now stooped and defensive. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Please, Daniel. I have nowhere else to go." I stepped aside wordlessly, allowing Jake into our childhood home. He moved past me with the hesitancy of a stranger, rather than someone who had grown up in these rooms. "I'm sorry about Mom and Dad," he said, standing awkwardly in the entryway. "I wanted to come to the funeral, but I was in a bad place." "You are still in a bad place from the looks of it," I observed, noticing the tremor in his hands and the sour smell of someone who had not bathed recently. "I messed up Danny." Worse than ever before, he admitted, using the childhood nickname he knew I hated. "Amanda took the baby and moved back with her parents. She has a restraining order against me now." "What did you do?" I asked, though I could guess. "I was drunk. Said some things scared her. I would never have actually hurt them." He insisted, the same excuse I had heard countless times growing up. Jake never meant to break my arm, pushing me down the stairs. He never meant to ruin my college applications by accidentally spilling coffee on them the day they were due. "Why are you here, Jake?" He looked around the house, taking in the boxes and packing materials. "I heard about the will," he said finally, "that they left everything to you." Of course. It always came down to what he could get from others. And I need help, Danny. I am desperate. Living in my car when I can afford gas shelters, when I cannot. I cannot keep a job because of the child support garnishments. I have medical bills piling up. He pulled up his sleeve to show a poorly bandaged arm. Infected cut. I cannot afford antibiotics. The free clinic gave me a prescription, but... He trailed off, gesturing helplessly. Yet another part, perhaps. The part still influenced by our mother's insistence that blood meant something hesitated. Jake looked genuinely ill. The infection on his arm was serious, the skin around his amateur bandaging angry and red. He swayed slightly where he stood, either from weakness or withdrawal. "Sit down before you fall down," I said, finally pointing to the kitchen. "When did you last eat? Yesterday? Maybe the day before?" He followed me like an obedient child, a disconcerting reversal of our usual dynamic. I made him a sandwich in silence, my thoughts tumbling over each other. What did I owe this person who shared my blood but had never acted like family? What would our parents have wanted me to do, despite their final legal decision? "The inheritance," Jake said, between desperate bites of food. "I know I have no right to ask, but could you help me get back on my feet? Just enough for an apartment deposit, medical care, maybe a reliable car so I can hold down a job." "You want me to give you money?" I stated flatly. "After everything you have done." His eyes, so like our father's, met mine. For once there was no manipulation there, just raw desperation. "I have no one else, Danny. You are the only family I have left. You slept with my wife, Jake, got her pregnant while living under my roof, after a lifetime of making me miserable. And now you expect me to help you." He flinched at my words, dropping his gaze to the half-eaten sandwich. I know there is no excuse. I was jealous of you, if you can believe that. You had everything together. A good job, a beautiful wife, parents who were finally proud of you instead of me." The admission stunned me. Jake had always been the golden child, the one whose achievements were celebrated while mine were merely expected. "I destroyed it because I could not stand seeing you happy when my life was falling apart," he continued. "It is sick, I know that now. I have had a lot of time to think living in my car." His words sounded genuine, but I had decades of experience with Jake's performances. How many times had he apologized, seeming completely sincere, only to return to his old behavior as soon as it was convenient. "I need time to think," I said finally. "You can sleep on the couch tonight. We will talk in the morning." That night, I barely slept, torn between fury and pity. The brother upstairs was a stranger to me, now broken in ways I had never seen before. Yet the damage he had caused was real and lasting. My marriage, my trust, my relationship with my parents before their sudden deaths, all had been affected by his actions. In the morning, I found Jake examining family photos on the mantel one, showing all four of us on a rare happy vacation at the lake house when I was around 10. "I remember this day," he said, without turning. "Dad taught us both to water ski. You got up on your first try. It took me 7 attempts. You pushed me off the dock afterward when no one was looking," I reminded him. "I hit my head on the side of the boat." He nodded slowly. "I told them you slipped. They believed me, like always." The simple acknowledgement of this small truth among countless lies felt significant somehow. "I have made a decision," I said. "I will not give you cash. That would be throwing good money after bad, and we both know it." His shoulders slumped, but he nodded in resignation. "Instead, I am setting up a trust. It will pay for medical treatment, rehab if you need it, and housing directly to providers. No money will pass through your hands. You will need to stay clean, get counseling, and demonstrate you are making efforts to turn your life around." His head snapped up. "You would do that for me. After everything. Not for you. For Mom and Dad, who, despite everything, wanted us both to be okay. And maybe a little bit for the brother I wished I had growing up." It was not forgiveness. That would take far more time and evidence of genuine change. But it was a beginning, a recognition that cycles of destruction could potentially be broken. As Jake checked into rehab the following week, his few possessions in a duffel bag I had purchased for him, I thought about the twisting path that had led us here. The inheritance that my parents had intended as a final judgment had instead become a potential instrument of redemption. Whether Jake would ultimately change remained to be seen. Trust once shattered requires more than apologies and promises to rebuild. It demands consistent action over time. I set my boundaries clearly, protecting myself while offering conditional help. The journey ahead would not be simple for either of us. But for the first time in our complicated history, we were both walking into it with open eyes. I sometimes wonder about Amanda and the nephew I have never met. Perhaps someday, when the wounds are less raw, there might be space to know him without reopening the pain of betrayal. Children, after all, are not responsible for the circumstances of their creation. In the meantime, I focus on healing myself. The inheritance allowed me to take a sabbatical from work, seek therapy, and gradually rebuild my capacity to trust. I have even begun dating again, carefully and with full awareness of my vulnerabilities. The $2 million that came to me through tragedy has taught me that wealth, while providing security and options, cannot purchase the things that matter most: integrity, genuine connection, and inner peace. Those must be built through choices and actions day by day. Have you ever had to decide between cutting someone toxic out of your life completely or giving them one last chance? How do you balance self-protection with compassion when someone who has hurt you deeply comes asking for help? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences about family dynamics, betrayal, and the complex journey toward healing. Share this video with someone who might be struggling with similar difficult choices. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that sometimes the hardest decisions we make about family are the ones that ultimately lead to our own freedom and growth.